There are a few times when I don't plan on making a video on a car, but when the amount of DMs and messages from you guys make me change my mind. The car in today's video is such a case. This video is brought to you by Squarespace. From website and online stores to marketing tools and analytics, Squarespace is the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence and run your business. We're going to analyze the design of the new 2022 BMW 2 Series Active Tourer. I'm going to let you know my honest opinion of it and also show you the big problem right now with BMW design in general before I redesign the front end. We're going to focus on the front in this redesign. I think that's where the major issues are. I'll tell you why in just a minute. There's a lot to cover, so let's jump in. Now, just looking at this design, it's pretty clear that it's a front wheel drive package just by the proportions and the height of the hood and the front end. The outgoing 2 Series AT was the first BMW to feature front wheel drive when it arrived in 2014. It never made it to the US and neither will this new model, but it was still a very popular design and car in Europe for BMW to launch this second generation of the 2 Series AT. The size and proportions are very similar to the outgoing model with new powertrain options. The top of the range model at launch will be a 223i hybrid with 214 horsepower. However, more powerful models will arrive later in 2022 with the 225e and the 230e plug-in hybrids, for example. These will both be all-wheel drive as standard with power outputs of 241 horsepower and 321 horsepower respectively. And in addition to that, they will also feature a 16.3 kilowatt-hour battery, giving the new 2 Series AT an all-electric range of around 30 miles. Good for just cruising around town. Every new 2 Series AT will feature a 7-speed dual-clutch automatic as standard. Now, let's talk about what is really going on here with BMW design today. And I want you to keep in mind the 80s, the 90s, even the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, pretty much every single decade that BMW has existed. And I want you to keep in mind the lineup of that era and how congruent the front fascia and the identity of the cars were. So all cars I'm going to show you here now are 2022 models. So keep that in mind and just look at how different they all are from each other. It's pretty incredible. So this is of course the BMW i4. This is a 2022 model and I want you to keep focus on the front end on these models, even though these differences in these models, they stretch not just in the front end. Sometimes it's about the overall proportions, sometimes it's about the line graphics in the side view, but in this video we're just gonna focus on the front end just to keep it simple. So this is a typical i front end, so that means that it's all electric. We have this grille right here with the blue outline, as you can see, very thin line of blue here, but I want you to keep in mind this shape of the grille here and as we go through the models of this of 2022. So next up is the iX. And this looks, as you can see, totally different in the front end from the i4. It's a flat front end and you have different styles down here, as you can see, compared to this part right here. The headlights don't resemble these headlights at all anymore, and the grille itself is now a totally different design as well. They might look similar, but it's not. This could be 10 years earlier than this, even though they are both 2022 models, and you get kind of confused what BMW is actually trying to do. I've said this before, that I think they're just throwing stuff on the wall to see what sticks, but right now they're just throwing too much stuff on the wall at the same time and it feels like they don't even have time to check the responses of what actually sticks on the wall before they move on to the next design. What's interesting though is they still keep some of the traditional designs, for example in the BMW M5 here. This is still a 2022 model and just look at how beautiful this grille is. It's a traditional grille of BMW. It's not oversized and it feels like a natural progression and evolution from what we used to have 10-15 years ago up until today. We have some really cool chamfers here. As you can see, they are still connected in the middle, which I don't mind because this contrast silver here or gray is very stark contrast to what's inside of the grills here, which is all black. So this little piece in the middle doesn't really bother me that much. And also we have some beautiful looking headlights sticking out almost horizontally from the front end and the grille. I think it's a beautiful front end, very traditional BMW, and we don't have these air intakes sticking up all the way up here like we have on current models, which I don't understand why. That includes the new 2 Series AT, which I'm going to redesign in a minute here. So up until now, we have 3 2022 models with 3 completely different front ends. And then we have the M4. You might think that this M4 looks exactly like the i4 when it comes to the grille here, but that's incorrect, because if we look at the shape and outline of this grille or the nose here, you can see that this is not the same as the i4. The i4 has a little bit more edges to it, and almost looks like it's almost a little bit more ellipse-like than we have on the M4 down here, which has almost a straight line on the inside and then has these 3 edges here, angles on the outside of the grille. So it's a different design again from all the other ones. We can move along here. This is another 2022 model, as I'm sure you know, the M240i. This is a grille that I like as well. I think this could be a good progression from whatever we had 10-15 years ago. But at the same time, just look at this interesting chamfer here. So they have a constant chamfer that makes it look kind of cheap, in my opinion, because it has zero dynamic feeling here. And I made a redesign on this, talking about the entire front end and the rear here on the channel. I'm gonna link that down below in the description. But again, this is a totally different front end than any other 2022 model, and this goes for the headlights as well. So the headlights are totally different from any of these models up here. They just decided to throw another piece on the wall to see if the M240i sticks on the wall here. Then we can continue here. We're almost done. I know I could go through the entire lineup, and the weird thing about BMW today is they all have a very, very different solution to the front end graphic. Not just the front end graphics, but the proportions and the styling in general, which just blows my mind. Looking back at the 90s, we had a very clear identity of what a BMW is supposed to be. Today is just a mess of graphics and design in the lineup of BMW. This is not a bad looking X3. The problem is it doesn't look like any other car here as well. So we have another front end, and then of course we have the brand new 2 Series Active Tourer down here with this front end. I think it's not the sexiest package with an MPV or almost like a small minivan or something like that, but I do think it has potential. If we look at the sketches of this car, we can clearly see that the idea was to have it be a proper BMW. And what is exactly a proper BMW? I remember when I was a kid, I was reading some interview with a BMW designer, I can't remember who, but the most important thing for all BMWs is the stance. So if you look at it from a rear view, you need to have the fenders wide and the wheels almost flush with the fenders, so it looks planted on the ground. And this, if we removed the kidneys, the massive 7 Series kidneys here, the lights and the graphics in the front, this could be a Mazda, this could be a Kia, or it could be any other vehicle than a BMW. Because when I look at a BMW, I want to have that stance on the car. It doesn't matter if it's an MPV or a small minibus or whatever. If it's a BMW, you need to have the stance correct. And that's one thing that I'm going to change in this video. So I wonder what the designers thought when they made this design here, and what the purpose was with this massive graphics in the front end. How do you solve this problem? Well, you become a car designer. And how do you start that process? You start it with a good looking online portfolio. And that brings me to today's sponsor, Squarespace. One of the great features of Squarespace is the drag and drop portfolio builder. It's super easy to customize and design with templates already optimized to be viewed on any device. You can even add password protected pages to share private work with clients. Having trouble coming up with a unique logo? Let the built-in logo builder do the work for you. Just type in your business name and you'll have a beautiful logo in no time. If you're selling your art and designs online, use the Squarespace commerce platform to sell directly to your customers online with customizable e-commerce templates. You can even create your own membership site now, which I wish was around when I was building my site. This makes it so much easier to manage your online classes and courses. Start with your free trial today at squarespace.com, and when you're ready to launch, head over to squarespace.com/TheSketchMonkey to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain using code TheSketchMonkey. So I just want to walk you through quickly the front, side, and the rear of the new 2 Series AT, or Active Tourer as they call it. And the problem with the front end, as I mentioned earlier, is the heavy heavy front end of the graphics here, the graphics that you have. These kidneys are way too big and way too like in your face for this type of proportions in car. Specifically if you have it in this chrome that you don't even have chrome anywhere else on the graphics. So why would you pronounce this massive piece of graphic even more, push it even more in your face by outlining it with a chrome trim pieces? You don't have chrome here, so I'm not sure why they want to like in your face this grille even more than they need to. So that's one of the things that I want to change. This is a 2 Series, remember that. So why not take the M240i, take that grille and apply it onto this package. Make the lineup more familiar with each other and not have 10 different front faces for 10 different models of 2022. I don't think that's a good idea. It's going to dilute the brand identity. Another thing with BMW here is if we look at it from a side view real quick, I want to talk about the shoulder line here. So I guess I understand what they're trying to do. You see the heavy, the tall height here of the front end. This is typical front wheel drive packaging right here with this mass right here going from the wheel arch up to the hood. That means that we need to have all the front wheel drive mechanics to fit underneath there. But the shoulder line here is very interesting. I think they made it like this. So you have it go here and then just dip down here, crash into this point right here. It doesn't really connect with anything there. So they have it be a sloping line, and I think they did this to reduce visually this height right here. But what I want to do, and what's important for every BMW, you have the stances I talked about before, and you also have a clear defined shoulder line, which is lacking now in the M4 and now also here on the 2 Series AT. So what I want to do is just create some connection between these graphic features here. Let's create a shoulder line that stretches like this from the front end of the headlights to the rear of the taillights and make it look longer than what it is. Because if we have 3 shoulder lines like we have here, we have 1 right here and 2 right here, and then you see we have a little subtle shoulder right there. So these are the disconnected lines. What that does in a package like this, it makes it look shorter than what it actually is. It's already a short vehicle, so what we want to do is stretch it out as much as possible visually. We do that by creating lines that stretches as far as possible visually. That's how you stretch a car like this and make it look longer. I guess it could be a good looking design, but it's just not a good looking BMW. That's the problem here. And we have this line down here also doesn't really connect to anything. I don't understand why they made this line go up here and then into this piece right here. I guess this corner, when I wanted to connect to this piece right here, have it be lower and connect something like that. Unusual lack of line from BMW here that I'm not used to seeing, but as I said, it's a cool package. I think it has a lot of potential. Rear looks pretty decent actually. I really like this rear end. It reminds me a little bit of the BMW X5. The taillights might look a little too big in my opinion. I'm not going to change anything in the rear. I don't think it's as messy as the front end. The front end is really what needs help here. It needs a bit of a redesign to just bring down the heavy weight of the graphics in the front and make it lighter and more sporty, and also plant the car on the ground. So that's exactly what we're gonna do next. One really complex area of this design is if you look at all the lines going above the headlight, you have one line going to the edge, to the corner of the grille. You have another line in the a bit further in on the hood. Then you have 2 lines, one stretching from the A-pillar, and you have this subtle shoulder line stretching from the corner of the headlight. So we have 4 different lines in that little corner of the front end of the car. This just makes it so complex, unnecessary complex. What I want to do in this redesign is just try to keep the feeling or the spirit of the initial sketches of this car. That still means that we need to reduce the size of the front grille. But what I mean by that, keeping the spirit of the sketches, is to have the same kind of plantedness as the sketches show. So you do sketches like this to sell the concept. You want to have very attractive looking sketches, sporty looking sketches, specifically if we're talking about BMW, and that will sell the design to the management or whatever. These sketches right here are probably done after the design design has been established already just for press purposes. But when you start out a project like this in car design, you always have a bunch of designers coming out with different ideas, and that's why the sketches usually always look a lot sportier with huge wheels planted on the ground and so on. And then when it comes to production, everything, it loses pretty much everything that the sketches were communicating. That's the same thing here. We're starting to see less and less of that since companies are getting better at turning those sketches into a production reality while still keeping the essence of the sportiness and the proportions of the sketches, specifically when we move into the EV era. But at the same time, I think this design, it really does have a lot of potential. It's not a bad looking design if we just change a few things and remove all this mass in the front end, the weight of the graphics in the front end, make it more connected with the 2 Series that's already out there. Why do we need 3 different grills for 2 different types of 2 Series? It doesn't make sense. So let's just bring the family of BMW together closer, like we have had throughout the decades. The 80s, you had the same kind of styling in the front end, even if it was a 3 Series all the way to the 7 Series. Same in the 90s, same in the 2000s, and now in 2010, 15, then when things started to move around a little bit with the Bangle 7 Series, and now it's now the designs are all splattered all over the wall, and they don't know which direction are they actually going to focus on, or are they going to keep doing different designs for each different model that comes out and kind of dilute the BMW brand identity completely. I don't want to see that. I want to have a more narrow field of design. They can still be very different within the brand, but we still need to have some sort of red line that goes through the lineup of BMW, because as I showed you, the cars that I showed you in the beginning, they are all 2022 models, and they look like they could be 10, 15, 20 years apart in some cases. Specifically looking at for example, the M5, compare that to the iX, they don't look anywhere close to being in the same family, in my opinion. Another thing is the BMW is doing right now are these corner graphics in the lower parts of the bumper. They stretch too far out. It's not a harmonious feature. It stretches too far up, like it's intruding in the bumper for no reason at all. We don't need that. Let's just lower that down, have it be in the same kind of height as the middle intake in the front end, have it be a natural progression or design evolution of for example, the E46 M3 or the E39 M5 with those intakes in the lower part. We can still have similar graphics, but don't drag it out in unnecessary proportions like BMW is doing right now. On top of that, let's clean up the shoulder, have it be a straight line, make the car look longer, and last but not least, plant the car. Even though this is supposed to be an MPV, it's not a sports car, I don't care. It's a BMW, we need to plant it properly on the ground, and that means bigger wheels, and the wheels need to fill out the wheel arches, and they need to sit out further out. That's one of the key features of all BMWs up until now, so we can't just lose that. We need to implement that even on the smallest cars, and even on MPVs like these.